Yes, people, and welcome back to the channel. International break is upon us, so I thought what better time to have a little bit of an international discussion. As you can see by the top I'm wearing, we are talking about the top 10 Dutch players in Premier League history today. Let me know your thoughts if you think I've ranked anyone too high, if you think I've ranked them too low. Let me know who you would put on your top 10 list as well in the comments. Like the video if you haven't, and subscribe for more. Let's get into the video. Starting off the list, coming in at number 10, we have Rafael van der Vaart. Now, this one wasn't a long time, but it was most definitely a good time. 2 beautiful years at Tottenham Hotspur. It was a season where it was our first one back in the Champions League since the 1960s. So we needed to step up the caliber of players that we bought. And Rafael van der Vaart came in on deadline day, August 31st, 2010 for £8 million. I repeat, £8 million. This might be one of the best bargains in Premier League history, in my opinion. Now, that was obviously our first year back in the Champions League. First game, I think it was against Werder Bremen. Who pops up with an assist in his first game back? Rafael van der Vaart. First 4 games, who gets 3 goals? Mr. Rafael van der Vaart. I think he got Player of the Month in October as well. He came in firing on all cylinders. But the moments where I feel like he really cemented his kind of name in Spurs folklore, the North London derby. Getting the 2 goals, getting the equalizers when it really matters. In a time when we were, top 4 contenders, but we weren't cemented there. That result was needed. It was only a 2-2 draw, but then let's not forget that game away at Anfield. 2-0. The screamer. That was actually the last time Tottenham Hotspur have won at Anfield. Finishing the season as Tottenham Hotspur's top goal scorer as well with 15 goals and 9 assists. Nearly a quarter of Tottenham goals that season, which was 55 in total. Not very much, but Van der Vaart definitely played his part in that debut season. And then the next season, he carried on with more of the same. Chipping in again in the North London derby and matching Sheringham's record of scoring in 5 consecutive games for Tottenham Hotspur as well, which hadn't been done since the 90s. Finishing the season with 13 goals and 7 assists and returning to the top 4 in that season as well. So Rafael van der Vaart, it wasn't a long time, but it was a very good time in at number 10. Next up, number 9, we have Georginio Wijnaldum. Now, everybody will remember him as Liverpool's midfield warrior during Klopp's reign, making 237 appearances, scoring 22 goals and 16 assists. Now, those numbers aren't ridiculous, but I feel like Georginio was someone who always sacrificed his game for the good of the team in that Liverpool team. Everybody knows that Liverpool midfield was the engine room to essentially let the wide men thrive. We've never seen goal scoring like we saw with Mane and Salah. We've never seen fullbacks put up assist numbers like Trent and Robbo. And I feel like that midfield trio of Henderson, Fabinho and Georginio Wijnaldum let them do that. And when you look at that midfield, you had Fabinho doing all the defensive work. You had Henderson running around doing all the streaming. But Georginio, for me, was the glue in that midfield that linked that defense to the midfield to that attack. Someone with a very good technical base level, physically could bring the game as well. And I think everybody also forgets that year at Newcastle he had before he even went to Liverpool. He got 11 goals and 5 assists in that debut season. And it kind of let you know what type of player he could be once the shackles are off. But he is someone who always, I felt like, sacrificed his game for the good of the team. And he got rewarded at the end of it. Left with a Premier League title, a Champions League medal, Club World Cup success, and a UEFA Super Cup as well. Georginio Wijnaldum, the streets won't forget what you did, sir. Number 9 it is for you. Next up, coming in at number 8, we have Marc Overmars, a man who had a short but impactful spell in the Premier League, similar to him, to be fair. But Marc Overmars, of course, part of that historical Ajax side that I kind of grew up on as a kid. One of my first football memories was seeing an Ajax side lift the Champions League, a side that contained the likes of Marc Overmars, Edgar Davids, Kluivert, Seedorf, Van der Sar, and the De Boer twins. They made history as some of the youngest winners in that Champions League side, and a lot of them got big moves out of it. Now, Marc Overmars made his move to Arsenal in 97 till 2000. He made over 100 Premier League appearances, scoring 25 goals and laying on 27 assists. Now, Overmars played in the days where wingers were traditional wingers. I know nowadays you have your trequartistas and your inside forwards and your Raudermouters, but his job was get down the byline, beat your man, and get that ball in the box. In terms of 1v1 ability, this guy was a speed demon. When I tell you, his nickname was the Road Runner. Meep, meep. He was gone if you gave him 2 yards of space, honestly. Now, despite being fairly inconsistent in his first season, he actually came up very crucial in their League and Cup double season. Scored in the final in the FA Cup And then in the league, when they went away to United, title on the line, especially with these two going toe-to-toe all the way to the wire, guess who scores the winner? Mark Overmars once again. Finished the season with 12 goals, only second to Dennis Bergkamp, who had 16 at the time. But Mark Overmars pretty much set the tone in his debut season. But the next season, United end up getting their lick back in the 99 campaign. But it is also the season where Mark Overmars puts up the most assist numbers in 13 and plays the most minutes in any season he played for at Arsenal. And in his final year, wins the Community Shield. And although he may not have won another league title or an FA Cup, he did leave with 12 goals and 5 assists in that last season before moving to Barcelona for 25 million, which at the time was a record transfer for any Dutch player. But someone who once again left a huge mark on Arsenal at the time. And I felt like really left his imprint within those 3 years. But Mark Overmars, the youth might not remember, but I will keep reminding them. Number 8 for you. Coming in at number 7, we have Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, joining Leeds in 97-98 after spending a bit of time in Portugal and the Netherlands, of course. It took him a little bit of time to get going. Up until Christmas, he'd only had 5 goals, but he finished his debut season with 16 Premier League goals. Repeated the same feat the very next season as well, finishing a golden boot. However, it was a joint golden boot. The first ever joint golden boot with Michael Owen and Dwight York on 18 goals. And unfortunately, despite all his goal-scoring efforts over those first 2 seasons, scoring 16 in his debut campaign, 18 in the next one, he couldn't agree new terms with Leeds United. So Leeds United came to a crossroad where it was either keep him and lose him on a free or sell him to Atletico Madrid for 12 million, which they did. And once he went to Atletico Madrid, boy did he find his goal-scoring boost. 33 goals in 43 games in all competitions. However, it still wasn't enough to stop them from being relegated. And this is the great Atletico Madrid we're talking about. Once upon a time, they were in the second division. After the relegation, got tempted back to another move to the Premier League with Chelsea this time. And this is a different Chelsea. This is a Chelsea pre-Abramovich. This is a Chelsea where Gianfranco Zola, Gianluca Vialli, these are the guys running the show. And he came in and let the league know, I'm back and I'm better. This time, there was no questioning who was going to be the Golden Boot. And he was a clear and runaway Golden Boot winner in his debut season, scoring 23 league goals. And the very next season, repeating the exact same feat, 23 league goals again. This man, over that 4-5 year stretch, was an absolute goal-scoring machine. The types of goals he was scoring as well. You had free kicks, you had long shots, you had all types of finishes. This man played with pace, power, and bully mode. Now, of course, in those later years, things started to change at Chelsea. The Abramovich era started to begin. And that 2-man step that he had with Johnson, and this was an era of 2-man steps. You had Henry, Bergkamp at Arsenal. You had Van Nistelrooy, Scholesy at United. And then at Chelsea, you had Hasselbank and Johnson. And they were the 2-man step. But when Adrian Mutu is getting bought for big money, when Hernan Crespo is getting bought for big money, those guys started to get faded out a little bit. And maybe you could say age was coming to an end as well with Hasselbank. But Chelsea was not his last dance in the Premier League. After he left Chelsea, he went and joined Middlesbrough on a free transfer where he led them to a UEFA Cup final, losing to Sevilla in the final. And this was actually the first of Sevilla's famous UEFA Cup Europa League run beginning, essentially. But Hasselbank was part of that Middlesbrough team there. And look, he's not someone who you will say won a lot throughout his career, but everywhere he went, he definitely made his impact known. Leeds United will remember him very fondly for those first 2 years. Chelsea will always remember him as that big, great striker before that Roman Abramovich era began and the likes of Drogba, Crespo, Mutu, and all those guys came in. He left the Premier League scoring 127 goals and putting up 52 assists in 288 games in total, and included is 2 golden boots. Like, it can't be questioned his impact in this league, his impact on these clubs, and he may not have won much, but he definitely made his impact be felt. Next up, number 6, we have Edwin van der Sar. Now, following obviously his rise, being a part of that young Ajax side that I spoke of, a lot of those guys went on to move to Serie A clubs because Serie A at the time was the Premier League of the era. It was the best league in the world in the 90s. And Edgar Davids moving to AC Milan, Seedorf moving to Inter, Bergkamp moving to Inter Milan. Van der Sar moved to Juventus. Now, initially, this was going really well, but during his second or third season, Juventus went and broke the world record transfer for a name that we all know, Gianluigi Buffon. And After a couple of errors in the previous season, it looked like basically Van der Sar was going to be the number 2 option. It was time for him to essentially do a career rebuild. Going to Fulham was a bit of a humbler, I would say, because Fulham were just getting promoted at the time from the Championship. You got to remember, for him, this was just about, I need to get minutes and I need to get back on the ball. And he stayed there for 5 years, to be fair, and kind of went under the radar about how good he was over there. But you keep performing consistently. You keep turning up when you need to turn up, and your opportunity will eventually come. As I said with Nathan Ake. And the same thing happened with Edwin van der Sar. Man United went through a rough period of going through Mark Bosnich, Van der Gaal, Massimo Taibi, Fabian Barthez. United fans, you all know these names. Not for good reasons. They are all comical moments attached to all of those names I just mentioned. But when Van der Sar came in, there was a sense of almost, we actually have a safe pair of hands in goal. And what he went on to do for the next 4 or 5 seasons was incredible, honestly. Team of the Year in 2006 and 7. He set a new clean sheet and Premier League record for not conceding for 1,311 minutes. That's almost 15 games in a row. Do you understand how insane that is? Now listen, granted he had Rio Ferdinand, Vidic, ever in front of him. But Van der Sar was also huge in that. You ask any United fan during that kind of golden late thousands period, they will tell you Van der Sar was a massive part of that. Got the golden gloves in 08-09 as well. Best European goalkeeper in 2009. 14 years after initially winning it with Ajax in 95. This just goes to show you that he returned to those levels that he initially came through. Came through at Ajax as a superstar, wonder kid, superstar goalkeeper. Lost his way a little bit at Juventus. Restored the feeling and restored his levels at Fulham. But Man United gave him one more opportunity at that big one. And he went there and did it and set records. What a player, what a goalkeeper, honestly. Edwin van der Sar, number 6. Next up, we have number 5. And this one is another one that is genuinely one of my favourite players. And that is Ruud van Nistelrooy. A man who is, for me, one of the purest finisher this league has seen. When you think of the term fox in the box, this should be the first person you think of. And initially, he was wanted by Manchester United in 2000, but the move got delayed a year due to an ACL injury. And at this time, this isn't like nowadays where ACL injuries, you just bounce back 4 months later. They had to wait an entire year to see if this brother can actually maybe play football again. But boy, was it worth it. In his debut season, PFA Player of the Year. 23 goals in 32 Premier League games, scoring in 8 consecutive games, matching Shearer and Henry's record. If that doesn't set the tone for your debut season, I don't know what does. Now, the following season in 02-03, he actually outscored Thierry Henry, scoring 25 goals in 34 games. And you know what the most crucial part of that is? That's actually the season United won the title. Go and look at the last 8 games of that season. Ruud van Nistelrooy once again scored in 8 consecutive games, coming in clutch in the most crucial time of the season. Sets the tone in his first year, delivers the title in his second year. In that season, he won the Premier League Player of the Year, the UEFA Best Striker as well, after scoring 12 goals in 9 Champions League games. Do you understand? Nobody's safe. You're not safe in the Premier League. You're not safe in Europe either. And he's outscoring some of your favourite legends. Look at the amount of minutes he's played compared to some of these other players. 681 minutes played, almost half of some of these other guys, but outscoring them all with ease. Now, the next season, Arsenal got their lick back, and it was the Invincibles title being delivered. But Ruud van Nistelrooy was not going down without a fight. 30 goals in 44 games in all competitions. And this was actually the season where he set the Premier League record for the most goals scored in consecutive games, and that was 10. At the time, he'd matched it with Shearer and Henry's record of 8, but now he'd set a new bar. This guy was letting you know, even if United are not going to be winning titles, I'm going to make sure I do my bit and I feast. Now, of course, we all know Vardy went on to go on and break that with 11 goals, but that record stood for a very, very long time. Now, instead of next season being a redemption season of where United win back their title, it actually ended up being an injury-hit season for Ruud van Nistelrooy, only scoring 16 goals and only playing 27 games. However, there was one thing of note within that season. The invincible run had ended, and guess who played a huge part in that? It was Ruud van Nistelrooy, of course. Once again at the forefront, letting people know, I'm always going to do my part. Don't doubt me. Do you know what? I really love the kind of United and Arsenal back and forth in that era. It really felt like Henry and Van Nistelrooy both personified as the faces of that kind of rivalry. But it was incredible seeing them go back and forth in terms of golden boots, in terms of goal scoring ability. And at the time, Henry was almost like the undisputed best player in the world. But to have this guy going toe-to-toe each week, both of them wearing the mercurial vapors, they were like cultural tone setters, I feel like, at the time, honestly. Incredible, incredible rivalry. Now, in his final season, he did win his final trophy with Manchester United with the League Cup, but unfortunately, he did not play in that final. This was a time when you felt like his relationship with Fergie was starting to become a little bit fractured, and he could kind of see, you know, some of the new gens with the likes of Ronaldo, with the likes of Rooney, were starting to come in and were looking like a threat to his place, essentially, because he had been the king of Manchester, essentially, for the past 4 years. The way Rooney and Ronaldo were looking like generational talents coming up, Fergie could kind of see and preempt, you know what? Van Nistelrooy is 29. He's getting a couple of injury issues now. Is it time to maybe phase him out and start bringing in these new kids? And all in all, in the end, Fergie was proven right. It's frustrating because it felt like Van Nistelrooy played in arguably the worst Man United era and was one of their best players. When in actual fact, a couple of years later, you had the likes of Van der Sar, Evra, Vidic, Rooney, Ronaldo, and you just think, had Ruud van Nistelrooy been in that team, or had they been born a few years earlier, what could he have achieved with that Manchester United side? So it's a shame that he only leaves with one title. But, I mean, the impact he had, you can't deny it. 95 goals in 150 Premier League games. 38 goals in 47 Champions League games. All-time highest Dutch goal scorer in Champions League history with 56 goals and 150 goals in 219 games in all competitions for Manchester United. Sir Ruud van Nistelrooy, you will always have a fan in me. Now, some of you are wondering, listen, if Ruud van Nistelrooy is in 5th place, who the hell do you have in your top 4? Now, coming in next, we have a man. A real man. One of the most intimidating forces in football, in my opinion. And that is the great defender. That is Jaap Stam. Jaap Stam is, for me, one of the bedrocks of United, in my opinion, during that late 90s, early 2000s period. Initially joining for 10.6 million in 98, which was a world record fee for a defender at the time. He spent 3 seasons at Man United, winning the title in all 3 of those seasons. For me, one of the most intimidating looking, one of the most intimidating playing, physically a monster, technically very underrated as well, in my opinion, but also had that explosiveness and speed about him that he can play at fullback, he can play at centre-back. He was just a do-it-all defender, in my opinion. United fans will tell you they wish that 3-year spell had lasted longer. I think Fergie, knowingly himself, admitted that this was one of the biggest career mistakes. There's actually a quote here. He says, at the time, he had just come back from an Achilles injury, and we thought he had lost a little bit. We got the offer from Lazio, 16.5 for a centre-back who was 29. It was an offer I couldn't refuse, but in playing terms, it was a mistake. Even the great man Fergie himself knows it was a mistake. Even at 29, Jaap Stam was not done. But the 3 years he was there, he was so dominant. I felt like he carried that back line alone at times. Of course, you had Gary Neville, you had Dennis Irwin, loyal soldiers, United boys. But if I asked you, who were some of Jaap Stam's centre-back partners at the time? Could you name me them? United fans, could you name me them? Because I'll tell you who they were. Ronnie Johnson and Henning Berg. I don't think anybody remembers who they are. I don't think anybody knows who they are. But for 3 years, Manchester United won the title with them playing next to Jaap Stam, which tells you the level of carry job that Jaap Stam was doing, because he was a one-man wrecking machine at that back there. No centre-forward wanted to play with him. Now, of course, you saw the vacuum that was there as well after Jaap Stam had left, because they tried to bring in the likes of Laurent Blanc as his replacement, a young Rio coming through as well. I feel like Rio Ferdinand as well had a lot of pressure on him at that early period in Man United, being that big money record signing. He struggled up until Vidic to really get a solidified centre-back partner. And I always just think, imagine if Jaap Stam had stayed on for another 2 or 3 years just to help Rio bed in, just to maybe see what that pairing looked like. Because I feel like Jaap Stam and Rio Ferdinand, that might have been one of the best yin and yangs we've ever seen. A front-footed, aggressive monster and a Rolls Royce that is Rio. Hey! They would have spoke about that partnership for years. But we got denied it because Fergie wanted 16.5 million. Listen, I think Jaap Stam is one of the most underrated players, and sometimes his spell was so short that people forget it. But for me, he definitely earns a place on this list. 4th place, Jaap Stam. Now, we're coming into dangerous territory. We're coming into top 3 territory. Number 3, we have Robin van Persie. Initially brought in as a young talent, a hybrid winger centre forward from Feyenoord. Kind of Wenger seeing essentially if he can do what he did with Henry all over again. First 4 seasons, he wasn't really a regular starter in that Arsenal side, but you could definitely see the potential. You could definitely see shades of that demonic left foot in those F50s. And the 08-09 was the breakout year. Of course, you had guys like Adebayor in the team at the time who was having his own breakout period. But he actually outscored him that season, scoring 20 goals in all competitions and 14 assists too. Now, we started the 09-10 season on fire as well. I think the first 20 games, he got 10 goals and 8 assists. But the same old issues reared their heads with an ankle injury, keeping him out for pretty much 2/3 of the entire season. But you could definitely see during this period that Robin van Persie was coming into his own. He was becoming the man at Arsenal. And you almost felt like that period that he was out injured, it was like Goku in the cryogenic chamber. It was like Vegeta in the cryogenic chamber. He was getting ready to essentially take over this entire league. Because when he returned, he scored 22 goals in 33 games in all competitions in that 10-11 season. Followed that up with a record-breaking season where he became the captain, scoring 30 goals in 38 Premier League games. And it's not just the number of the goals, but it's the quality of them. Some of those goals in that season were, I think he had about 4 or 5 goal of the season contenders. That pass move from Alex Song over the top, over the shoulder, was becoming a trademark move. And you know what? I feel like you have to give a degree of credit to Wenger during this period because he really stuck with him through those injury years. He really helped develop him. As I said, when he initially came in, he was a bit of a hybrid winger, centre forward, but he really helped him hone himself as a deadly centre forward. And now you were almost seeing the fruits of that labour. And I feel like that is maybe why it hurted Wenger more when Van Persie left in comparison to like a Cesc Fabregas who went to Barcelona, hometown club. Adebayor, mercenary situation. Sanya, mercenary situation. Nasri, mercenary situation. But Van Persie, he felt like was going to be the one that I birthed you. I made you. So you're going to repay me. But in that final season where he absolutely tore it up, became PFA Player of the Year, and he felt like he needed to win titles because he was putting up the body of work, but he wasn't getting the accolades to go with it. And then he made the move that, for me, cemented his place in this top 3. And that was the move to Manchester United. Go in there, taking the number 20 shirt and telling them, I will deliver you your 20th title. I don't know what says big cojones more than that. I don't know what tells me you're the guy in the moment than doing something like that. And boy, did he deliver. Scoring the winner at Anfield, 2-1, away win. Scoring against Arsenal, 2-1. Going back to your former club, all of those boos ringing around. The hat-trick turnaround in the win versus Southampton. And then let's not forget the hat-trick in the first half versus Aston Villa, which again had one of those trademark over-the-top left foot volleys. This guy was just unstoppable during this 3-year period, honestly. Imagine even in that season, he took a break. I think it was from February till about April, where he went 10 games without scoring in the Premier League. But he still finished the season on 26 Premier League goals. The guy was a phenom. And you got to remember, this was a United side that was pretty much aging. And this was their last dance. And even Fergie's last dance. Because Robin van Persie's first season was, of course, Fergie's last season. And it almost felt like, you know, once Fergie had left, Van Persie's powers had started to wane. And age had started to catch up to him. And all the injuries had started to catch up to him. But that first year, everything he'd kind of suffered through over the last couple of years came to a head, and he delivered that title. And I felt like everybody looks back at that last Fergie title as that was Robin van Persie's title. I've never seen a player go there and almost like single-handedly drag a team to a title. A team that you could see was on the downside, and that one shining light to just say, you know what, I'm going to be that guy to deliver it. And he actually did it. So Robin van Persie, number 3. Now, next up, we have one of the greatest geniuses the Premier League has ever seen. A footballing genius. A man whose IQ would make Einstein jealous. A man with ice in his veins. A man whose first touch flows like water. A man whose creativity makes artists filled with envy. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the non-flying Dutchman, Dennis Nicolas Maria Bergkamp. What a fucking player. Now, similarly like Overmars, Some of you may not have been outside. Some of you may not have been born. Some of you may not remember. But let me tell you now, Dennis Bergkamp is one of the best players this league has ever seen. I personally don't feel like enough noise is made about Dennis Bergkamp, in my opinion, in terms of his legacy, in terms of his impact. And I say that from both a Premier League perspective. I say that from an Arsenal fan's perspective. Part of it, I think, is because of guys like him, Gianfranco Zola, I think about as well. They're not really out and out nines. They're not really out and out tens. They're kind of support strikers that kind of get caught up in this grey area. They don't really get viewed the same as strikers. He was a pure creator, in my opinion, because you can even tell that by the fact that he had more assists than goals in his Premier League career. He has 96 assists and 87 goals. I mean, look at it. He's still ranked top 6 to this day. This was a man who was a creative machine in terms of creating chances for his teammates, in terms of creating chances even for himself. Some of the goals that he scored were second to none, honestly. I think that Dabiza's goal against Newcastle might be, for me, still one of the greatest Premier League goals we've ever seen. And in those early years as well, he was putting up numbers. He was scoring goals. He was playing his part. And then in the later years, as the likes of Thierry Henry, as the likes of Anelka started to break through, as the likes of Robert Pires came through, he saw that, you know what? I'm best utilized facilitating for these guys. I'm best utilized creating for these guys. And he became that glue. He became that kind of linchpin that connected all the dots. And Arsenal fans, tell me if I'm wrong, but this guy, for me, I feel like gets so overlooked, in all honesty. And listen, played a huge part in all 3 of their title wins, in my opinion. And always turned up at international tournaments for the Netherlands. So I will always have a soft spot for the Iceman. Now, we come to number 1. The man who is the greatest Dutch player in Premier League history. And for me personally, that is Virgil van Dijk. Now, I know some of you will have recency bias. Some of you will be thinking about the Chelsea, tooting his horn and twerking in the box. We're not doing that. Because what is already set in stone cannot be changed. I don't think anybody on this list who I've talked about so far has been the undisputed best player in their position in the world. Not league, in the world, like Virgil van Dijk was. Let's go back a bit as well, because I think everybody forgets Virgil van Dijk before he joined Liverpool. He was at Southampton. In his debut season, Southampton had finished 6th. 6th. Do you understand, Southampton? They shouldn't be 6th, bro. But how crucial he was to that defence after joining from Celtic, where for about 3 years he was cooking as well. But he came into the league letting everybody know, I am not one of these meaty mid-table centre-backs. I'm here just to bed my feet into this league. And I've got my eyes set on bigger things. The next season, Southampton finished 8th. And do you know what's so funny? The moment Virgil van Dijk left Southampton, Southampton never touched top half of the table again. Go and look at Southampton's history of finishes since Virgil van Dijk left. Them brothers have been fighting for their lives. They've been relegated twice. Now, I don't want to say, it's all because of Virgil van Dijk. But that was the domino effect that started it all. But that early period really let me know the quality of Virgil van Dijk, because I saw him at Celtic in the Champions League playing well. Then I saw him come to the Premier League and he looked a cut above everybody at Southampton. And you knew he was destined for bigger things. And then comes the Liverpool move, where he goes on to become the world's most expensive defender. Now there's an expectancy. Now there's pressure. Especially when you're a defender and Liverpool aren't even renowned for spending this type of money. You better make a difference, brother. Within 6 months, this brother was able to help Liverpool win the Champions League. Within 18 months, this man was able to help Liverpool win their first title in 30 plus years. Looking absolutely flawless. PFA Player of the Year, PFA Team of the Year, Champions League Best Defender, Ballon d'Or, top 3. We have never seen a peak like that in my eyes. Like, in terms of when you talk about football peaks in general, he is up there with some of the best in the world. We have never seen a defender playing at that level. People were talking about he had an imaginary force field around him. They were saying he's aura defending. Guys don't even want to engage with him because they can't dribble past him. It's pointless. Go down the other side and bother someone else. He was a unicorn during this period, honestly. And it would have been so easy, because I remember the conversation around that period was Virgil van Dijk's the best centre-back in Premier League history. But I felt like even me at that time, it would have been too soon. it was like, yo, he's only been at Liverpool for a year, 2 years, had a bit of good spell at Southampton, but we can't put him in the conversations with the Rios and Terrys and the Vidiches. Not yet. Not yet. I still need more. And then comes the big injury. Then comes the type of injury where at 30, when you get those types of knocks, you might not recover. And I think it took Virgil van Dijk about a year or so to really find his level again. But once he found his level, this guy became the best defender in the world again. And we saw almost what I would call a second peak. He's 34 now. And I think he's actually the best centre-back in the league. He's got Konate next to him, who everybody's been talking about is going to be the next one up. We've got Saliba at Arsenal, who everybody's been talking about as the next one up. He keeps reminding them season after season, I ain't going nowhere. And if you're telling me last season that title win Liverpool won, he wasn't a key cog in that. He wasn't the main reason why that defense stayed so solid. Come on, man. And doing that at 34. Virgil van Dijk now has the accolades. He has the individual honours. He has the peak. He has the longevity. He has the quality, the consistency. There's no more areas left for him to tick. He's been playing in this league for over 10 years and making it look easy. He took a year and a half out with an injury. And people doubted him. And he returned back to those levels. I'm sorry, but I've never seen anything like this. And I feel like because he's still a current player, people won't give him the appreciation that he deserves. Similar like I used to say with Kevin De Bruyne. I was crowning Kevin De Bruyne best Premier League midfielder of all time 4 or 5 years ago. Because I could see what this guy was doing. What in front of our eyes in the current time was freakish. And if he carried that on for another 2 or 3 years, it was cemented. He's leaving this league now comfortably in those types of conversations. And I think because Virgil's still currently playing, people are a bit hesitant to give him those flowers and give him his dues and, you know, crown him as the best or whatever. I think at this point is you're arguing with yourself. You're just lying to yourself at this point. This guy has hit levels that we haven't seen before. He's returned to levels that now all of these new guys were calling the best. He's still better than them. The guy is an absolute freak in my opinion, and he's shown it time and time again. And for me, I always say, give people their flowers while they are here. And Virgil van Dijk, while you are here, I'm going to tell you, for me, you are the greatest Dutch player in Premier League history. Well, look, that's my top 10, but it wouldn't be a top 10 without some honourable mentions now, would it? And first two I want to mention, Arjen Robben at Chelsea. And my goal, of course, Edgar Davids back there. I've got his shirt, actually. That's a match-worn shirt as well. But those two, for me, were two quality players. I felt like they had impacts in both those clubs' respective rises, Chelsea and Spurs. However, it wasn't a long enough stint as some of these other guys. Then you've got the likes of Dirk Kuyt. You've got the likes of Nigel de Jong as well, who are soldiers for Liverpool and Man City, respectively. You've got guys like Zenden as well, who are soldiers at those mid-table clubs like Sunderland and Middlesbrough, if you like. It's actually a bit interesting as well, because we're having a bit of a renaissance, it feels like, in the Premier League with Dutch players. It seems like every team pretty much has their go-to guy. You've got Arsenal, of course, with Jurrien Timber. You've got Spurs with Xavi Simons and Mickey van der Ven. You've got Liverpool with Gravenberch, Gakpo, Frimpong. You've got Man City with Reinders and Nathan Ake. Nathan Ake could actually even make a solid case to be in this top 10 list, but United have De Ligt. Newcastle have Botman. Bournemouth even have Kluivert. So there's actually quite a good stock of options of guys who could potentially end up one day on this list. Let me know what you guys think anyway. That is my top 10 list. Who would you move up? Who would you move down? Let me know your top 10 in the comments below as well. And also let me know which one of the current crop of players do you think could end up making this list someday. Appreciate you guys joining me today. Smash the like if you have made it this far. Would really mean a lot. Help this channel grow. Road to 25k. Subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know your thoughts in the comments as below, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Take care.